Welcome to Bold Talk series where creativity, leadership, ideas, and innovation come together. My name is Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with Carlo Scaglia, CEO and founder at Exordi. Carlo, great seeing you. Welcome to our Bold Talk series. How are you?
Thank you very much, Happy. I'm very good, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to hear that. Carlo, give us an overview of Exordi and what made you start Exordi.
Exordi is a global network of the world's best photographers and video makers, as well as models and influencers. And they're all hosted on our AI platform. What it does is that it provides agencies and brands streamlined access to a global network of the world's best creatives so they can cover any content need at scale with incredible ease. This came sort of from two experiences that I had, both in the corporate world, where I used to be in retail consulting, and the sports world, where I came from high-level sports. And in those two sections, I saw how we started to consume content differently and how hard it was for brands and their agencies to keep up with so much content demand for all of the different channels. And they always had to hop around, different resources to find the photographer, find the influencer, find the model, find the venue. And so I decided to create a platform that focused only on passion, only on talent, and hosted the world's best people, pre-vetted by us, and could enable these brands and the agencies just to simply find the most relevant ones in a few seconds to create content anywhere. So by doing that, we remove all the typical difficulties around content, such as time, budget, and location.
Nice. Carlo, you mentioned you're talking about content. What type of content we're talking about here?
Right now, we're focused just on photo and video, but that also includes things like 3D and visual effects. And it's content that can live on anything from TV to socials to website, digital display, billboards, anything like that.
Nice. Now, what problem are you solving here, and how are you different from other platforms, if there are any similar to yours?
Yeah. We're solving the difficulty to access the right creators in very little time. So agencies and brands are naturally quite protective of their creative control because it's their brand identity. And every time they need to create content, as I said, to keep up with all of this demand, it's a struggle to find the right people in the right places that they can trust, that can handle important productions. So we give them a very simple access to a curated network. And it's taken a while to build, but already the photographers and the video makers have been hand selected. They're among the best in the world. We have a partnership with Elite World Group. That's the holding company of Elite Models, Women Supreme. And they're the best in class in terms of modeling and influencers as well. So we've been able to bring together like the Red Bull of content creators, the world's best, all under one roof, and blend it with cutting edge tech to provide the most seamless access to this kind of talent.
Nice. Well, that's something that brands need that have access, but also the creators as well. So you're solving the problem on both sides. Uh, Innovation comes with risk and also allocating, resources as a small company. Um, how do you balance the need for innovation while, taking the risk of failure? Obviously, you gotta keep pushing for innovation, but then how much of the resource that you got to allocate towards that, and then how you balance that with the risk of failure?
It's a good question. Also because, we've tried a lot of things. So a lot of things didn't work, and then you find the things that do work. So I think there's a few elements to this question. One of them is really listening to your customers. And you start with just like when you start building out a product, you start with like the main element that solves the problem, right? You can build endless features, but you want to start with one and still manually do everything else. And you start with that one part. Once you have that one and you start rolling it out with your clients, you start to understand what's the next commonality of problems that they're facing. In other words, what's the next most important feature that we can add? And so you start to get feedback from your clients, but also that requires you to be quite aware. In other words, I think as founders, it's easy to get like really focused into your product and saying, oh, we're building this machine learning element or this next generative AI element, when actually maybe your clients just want automated contracts.
Hmm.
And so it's about being really aware and really listening to what your clients want. And then from that one, rolling out a set of easy iterations that a few clients can test. Once that's approved, roll it out publicly. So I think you always got to work it on an iterative system, always learning, always testing, rolling out with approval, then you roll out to a larger market. And that's the way to have a sort of like controlled test.
Yeah. Yeah, whereas I mean, we are one of the testimonies that we've done that, and we've seen quite a different result post COVID. And truly, it's about the getting that customer feedback from a very early stage in terms of the products and services that they're, you know, because assumption really kills everything, right? And so when
Yeah.
you start to assume that the customer needs all the bells and whistles, and then they come say, no, we just need this particular thing, it kind of like blows up everything. So now, when you see these trends where things are heading, where what do you see as the most significant trends are happening in your area, and how does the role of AGI is taking shape in your space? You know, knowing that, for example, like with AGI today, you have countless of photos that you can generate in like a split second, right?
Yeah. I'll start with the latter comment that you said, because I think it's the easier one to address. So generative AI, we use it quite a bit. We're not scared by it in terms of like the content production industry, because generative AI content is still needs to run on past data, meaning that whatever it puts out is not original. There's a convergence towards a norm that ends up kind of looking the same. So it's a risk for things like stock content, but it's not a risk for original content. Where it can be used is for things like creating mood boards, visualizing briefs, sort of reducing the margin of error between what a client wants and what creator wants. And that's where we use it to really like show both parties what they need to make. In terms of where we see this industry going on, where we're putting quite a lot of bets, is on a convergence. Like right now, this industry is very fragmented. You got like loads of boutique little agencies, some that do UGC, some that do slightly better content, some that specialize in auto, some in beauty. Then there's the influencer one. There's the one that's focused only on mega influencers, and one that does only modeling. And so it's like the Wild West out there. When a brand needs to actually create a very simple piece of content, it turns into this massive production because they don't have a one-stop place to do it.
Mm.
And so we really see this advertising world into going into a concrete single use platform where you can find what you want very easily, be kept up to date with trends, see in performance, measure the performance of a campaign, reiterate on those briefs, suggested through things like machine learning, visualized by generative AI, etc., rather than always like hopping around from so many different platforms.
Yeah, well said. Now, talk about leadership. Leadership, it's hard. Leadership, it's you get to. It's about listening. How do you define your leadership style, and what principles guide your decision making?
So it's introspection's always a interesting question. I think my leadership style is relatively demanding in the sense that I expect people to work with a lot of passion, with a lot of focus. That when a task comes in, that task is getting done, it's getting done to the best abilities. But I'm also a firm believer in creativity. I believe in inspiration. I believe in connections among people. So I really urge people within Exordi to have these sort of like um lion type work attitude. And by I don't mean that in terms of like an aggressive way, but rather, lions hunt in like sprints. They'll do out a burst of energy, get their prey, then they eat, then they rest, they recover, they take their time, they play, and then they go back at it again. So I incentivize this way of, once you have your project, you do them as fast as you can, and you do them as well as you can. Then after that, you take your break, you refill your creative inspiration, you talk to the team members, you refresh your head, and then you go back at it. So I really like to balance the idea of work and play. In other words, creative inspiration. So when we work really hard and we work really well. And then when we take the right breaks, we make sure that's also done really well. So that's my leadership style. And I believe in letting people try, letting people mess up, and letting them sort of find their own way of working. I think micromanaging is useless because you're hiring people to do things that you can't do. So what's the point in telling someone what to do if they know how to do it better than you? Or what's the point in hiring if you know how to do it already? So you should really just hire people that know something that you don't, and let them find their fit within the company by trial and error.
Mm. Now, do you hire passion or train passion, or you do the both?
It's a mix of both. One thing I discovered as a founder is that you're always selling, to be honest. You're either selling to investors, you're selling to clients, you're selling to employees. You got to
You're
sell the
selling
dream,
something
sell the
right here
vision.
too, right?
Exactly, selling something here now. You're always selling. So, like, the role of a founder is really just keeping that North Star so attractive and so passionate and so interesting for people within the team to always work towards it. Having said that, I do look for that bit of like flair in people when I talk to them. And so yeah, it's a mix between the two things. I also think passion is cultivated within the company, but I want people that are have outside passions. I want people that have something outside of work that truly drives them, because that's a marker of inspiration and it's a marker of passion, which I
Yeah.
think translates to good work.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one, man. I play the way how you play, and I think that also gets you excited and energized. And without energy, you really can't do much, right? So,
Yeah.
now, Carlo, what does a word bold mean to you?
I associate bold with confidence, in the sense that you kind of take a decision as a matter of right or wrong, and you stick to it and you wear it proudly. And funny enough, it's something that we use quite a bit, the aspect of being bold, that it's, you got to try things that are out of the norm. You got to try things that are not being done. At the end of the day, when you're building a startup, you're building something that hasn't been done before. So all of these frameworks that exist out there, you can take inspiration from them, but they're not going to work for what you're building, for what we're building. So I think the part of being bold is really like, let me take a choice, a decision that is totally new. It might be, might have found some inspiration or some data to prove that it could work, but I don't know if it's going to work. But I'm going to do it as best as I can, holding my head up, right or wrong, it doesn't matter. For me, that's the word bold.
Yeah. And if it fails, own it and just go and roll it
Yeah,
again and do something maybe different, but learn from that mistake and just own it. Um, Carlo, great stuff.
exactly.
Always be bold. Congrats on your successes and achievements. Thank you for joining me in this Bold Talk series, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Until next time, take care, be great, and be bold always.
Thank you, Happy. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.